Fil-Am Civic Action, Hidden in Plain Sight, podcast where we uncover the realities of human trafficking and explore ways to support survivors and prevent exploitation. I'm Ernie Buo.
And I'm Bing Longaki. Today, we're diving into a pressing issue, sex trafficking in the Philippines, and how it connects to international trafficking, including right here in Las Vegas.
Joining us today is Dr. Catherine, or Dr. K, a licensed clinical social worker and international psychologist specializing in trauma, who has conducted in-depth research on sex trafficking in the Philippines when she took her Doctor of Philosophy or PhD at the Chicago School of Professional Psychology in 2022. She was inspired to complete her dissertation in the Philippines after seeing how many young girls and women have been trafficked from the Philippines to Las Vegas. Presently, Dr. K is the president of HOPE, or Hope Counseling Services, an organization that works with people of all ages who are struggling with their mental well-being. Thank you for being here, Dr. K.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm really happy to be here, even though this is a really difficult conversation to talk about. I have so much gratitude to be able to just impart my knowledge with you guys and with our community.
So let's start. Dr. K, what motivated you to complete your study in sex trafficking in the Philippines?
Well, once upon a long time ago, back in 2014, I actually attended a local event for professionals here in Las Vegas. And there was some dialogue amongst the different professionals, law enforcement, mental health professionals, educational folks, regarding the staggering numbers of women and children from the Philippines who have been trafficked into our community. And I thought, well, what can I do? Well, one of the things that I could do was research to have greater understanding. In all reality, I wanted to be able to make sure that our organization at Hope Counseling Services, and Hope is healing, overcoming, preventing, and empowering. How are we going to help to prevent trafficking in a culture that I wasn't familiar with? How was I going to be able to empower healthy change with women and children that I had no knowledge of? And so I decided to explore doctoral programs that specialized in trauma and culture. Thus, I became an international psychologist and began my dissertation study in human trafficking, specifically sex trafficking of women and young girls in the Philippines.
Very important work, Dr. K. Can you tell us more about your study? What was the organization that you work with? Who were the participants involved? And what were the biggest takeaways?
Sure, absolutely. I conducted my study in the Philippines over the course of several years, doing research on the culture as well as sex trafficking, not just in the Philippines, but worldwide, globally, making some comparisons. And the organization that was so gracious to work with me over a number of years to collect my data was actually in Cebu, a non-profit organization, which I'm not at liberty to disclose the name for
Bing
protection.
came from. Bing was born there.
Oh,
True,
cool,
I am
right
from
on.
Cebu. Do you speak Cebuano?
I do not, but I speak one of their most important languages, which is the language of love. And so
Great. That's great.
it was an incredible journey, incredible experience, and I completed the bulk of my work during the pandemic. And so it just was a phenomenal experience. I learned a lot from the participants. So the participants were actually professionals. My first target population were the survivors or the rescued victims. However, the Institutional Review Board said no. My department chair said no, because they're a vulnerable population. So I actually interviewed the professionals in the Philippines who were social workers, case managers, educators, house parents, people who go out in the trenches to do the rescuing. And although I would like to have had law enforcement, they were too busy keeping the streets safe amidst the pandemic.
Right.
And so I wasn't able to get them to participate. There was something else you asked me.
Yeah, the takeaways.
Oh, the
from
takeaways.
that.
Yes, the
yeah.
takeaways. So many incredible takeaways. The most heart-wrenching takeaway, was really about cyber trafficking that had come to be this huge thing amidst the pandemic in the Philippines. The Philippines is in the top 3 countries worldwide for cyber trafficking.
What essentially is cyber trafficking?
Cyber sex trafficking, so where sex is being promoted through social media, where sexual acts are being perpetrated, and the most heart-wrenching thing is that traffickers were targeting parents. In the villages of the Philippines, you have people who are hungry, they're starving, and they couldn't leave their homes. And unfortunately, a lot of parents were promised lots of dollars by trafficking their own daughters. And this was not just in the Philippines. This is a worldwide issue where trafficking has evolved to that. And it continues to be so today. It's a true travesty, but this was the most shocking finding of my study.
Wow.
That's
very horrifying.
It is horrifying.
They're targeting the most vulnerable group of people.
Yes. But I don't want to give the message that was the only, takeaway. That was the most tragic takeaway. And that's not to say that all the kids that were being trafficked during my study were trafficked by family members, by parents who were desperate to feed the entire family. And then you have the children who were desperate to please their parents. But a lot of girls and women were trafficked under the false guise of promises of employment in the United States. And this is where the international sex trafficking happens, right? Across borders, where they get promised nursing jobs, they get promised to work in the entertainment capital. You're going to be able to be on a big stage.
Yeah, Las Vegas.
Right? Vegas, yeah.
It's a big attraction,
Huge.
So any patterns that you noticed the traffickers used in luring these victims to come here?
They will lure them. They have like entertainment job recruiting places, sort of like how you would go to an employment agency here. And so, look, we can help you to help your family. In the Philippines, family and God, that's at the center, right? And so to be told that you can help to support your family, we'll give you the money to go, we'll get you the passport, we'll get you the airplane, we'll get you an apartment, and then as soon as they arrive, their documentation is taken from them, and that's where the coercion begins, the sexual exploitation begins, the debt bondage begins, that now you owe me, and then these girls have no way to escape, and then the shame factor is unbelievable.
So when you say their documentations are confiscated, like their passports,
they're taken
their
from them
visas,
as soon as they land.
Wow, that's terrifying. How do these victims escape at all, if they can escape?
Well, and that's the hard part. So how do we help them to be able to feel safe enough to walk away from what becomes a new life when they carry a significant amount of shame? And when you think about the Filipino culture and the community centers around family, so I came here for my family, and if my family finds out that I've lost my virtue, they're not going to think well of me. They're going to want to disown me. And then all of that shame and negative self-talk continues to fester, and then the traffickers give them drugs, they get them high, and so then that shame factor comes into play, and so it's difficult for them to even think about escaping, because where else am I going to go?
That's
very true.
right?
Very true.
And so for us, what can we do is to keep our eyes open and to notice when you see, young girls, don't be afraid to check in. Are you okay? One of the ways that Las Vegas is helping when girls are being trafficked internationally is in our, well, just check your bathroom stall, ladies. And so I gotta say that Vegas is doing some pretty great things to help be able to rescue. And so it's not as much as escaping as it is rescue efforts, and how can we help them to be able to have places in the Filipino community right here in Las Vegas of where these young girls and women can go. Churches, community centers, right?
Right. So let's talk about the connection to Las Vegas. How are Filipino youth and adults trafficked across international borders into this community?
Well, the traffickers have lots of money, and so they're spending lots of money to get them here, and they're creating that debt bondage so that they're making all these false promises to the girls that if you come here, you're going to have a better life.
That's
You're
horrible.
gonna have the American dream, right? And they don't know any better.
Yeah.
True.
So
It's devastating.
that's really, really bad for the girls. So for our listeners who want to help, how can we support Filipino trafficking survivors here in Las Vegas?
Well, I think that we have to make sure that we don't shame. That's first and foremost, that we listen, we validate their experience, we create safe space, and that we really get in touch. I mean, I'm not Filipino, but I studied the culture for several years. So I'm speaking to the Filipino community. You get in touch with your roots, because your roots are so important in that rescue process, that they know that they're loved, and that they're valued, that they're going to be respected. You're going to not push them away, but you want to embrace them and give them safe space to be heard.
That's
Right? And I think that is so incredibly important.
Thank you for telling us that. You are in the right platform. That's exactly the reason why we're here. To disseminate information
absolutely.
like that.
So, Dr. K, those are great action steps. Now, what about for people in the Filipino community? How can they specifically help?
Well, I think that, the people in the Filipino community, one of the things that they can do is making sure that they've got, signs within your bathroom stalls. And I think, having information that you can put out, like in your churches, so that they know where to go to get help. I think that's really incredibly important, and not being afraid to talk about it. In the Filipino culture, there's so much stigma, there's so much shame, and being able to say, you know what? We're going to remove that. We're going to be part of this change of thinking, so that we can make sure that our girls who have been trafficked, who have been misled, know that, we're not condemning them. We're not putting them down. We want you girls to be able to come in and say, you know what, this awful thing happened to me, and that the people of the Filipino community, they love you, they're going to embrace you, they're going to help you, get you the legal assistance, helping them connect to the legal assistance. That's important. Helping them to reconnect to a church, get to a shelter. Lots of different shelters here in town that these girls don't even know about.
True. Perfectly said, Dr. K. That's such a great point. Many victims fear speaking up because of cultural stigma, just like what you have mentioned. So having community-led support is very crucial. And the Fil-Am Civic Action International, or FASI, is here exactly to do such that.
Yes. Wow, this talk really went so fast.
I know.
Before we wrap up, what's one thing you wish more people understood about human trafficking?
That it's not just something that's happening far away. It's happening in our community. Las Vegas is a hub for domestic as well as international sex trafficking, and that we have to be mindful. We need to be able, we live in a place where, sex is like people come from the tourist, right? And so sex trafficking is feeding that community. But we as community leaders, we can do something by coming together collectively.
Very true. That's
Thank
very,
you, Dr.
very true.
Kay. Yeah, thank you. And for someone who suspects trafficking, what's the best way to respond?
Honestly, when you see someone, you want to be really careful because you don't know if their trafficker is nearby. So you want to make sure that you're not putting them in harm's way. You want to be really subtle in the way that you're communicating, more like, hey, we're going to be getting together and having coffee over at Starbucks if you want to come. You want to give an invitation to a safe environment where maybe even go to church, oh my God, I would love to bring you. We're having open invitation at church. That's a great way to be able to kind of bring them out from a possible space where their life could be at risk if you just go up to them. Does that make sense?
And there's the National Human Trafficking Hotline too, right?
Yes,
That they can
absolutely.
contact. Yeah.
Absolutely. The National Human Trafficking Hotline is 1-888-373-7888. I would say put that in your phone, especially if you're, someone who's going to be working with them. And if that number is really big and you can't remember that, you can always call our local Child Protective Services as well, the CPS hotline, which is 702, I believe it's 3990081. I'll have to get back to make sure that number for you, but
For
definitely.
those who are watching, we'll put that
CPS.
number in our website.
Yeah.
So that's so important, Dr. Kay. Thank you for sharing your expertise today. This has been eye-opening and crucial information.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me. I
Oh,
really
thank you very
appreciate you
much.
guys.
Thank you. Again, we will also be adding that 1-888 number to our Pasay website. It's www.filamcivicaction.org.
Yes.
And also thank you to our listeners for tuning in to Hidden in Plain Sight. Please don't forget to share this episode. Talk about what you've learned and help be part of the solution. Until next time, stay informed and stay engaged. Thank you, Dr.
Thank you, Dr. Kay.
We really appreciate
Magandang gabi,
it.
bayan, Pasay Civic Action. Bye
Magandang
now.
gabi po sa inyong
Magandang
lahat.
gabi sa inyong lahat.